And it's cool. Zoom actually will, in the export, they'll give you the audio files for both people.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah, it splits it up perfectly for editing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, how far we've come with this technology is incredible.
Seriously. Yeah,
I,
something that was like a pandemic thing, or I thought it was, but
yeah, I realized, oh, it took a pandemic for me to be able to like start a podcast.
yeah, well, it's more than a lot of people.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's like, all right, cool. We have all the tools necessary to actually be able to have conversations with anyone from anywhere.
yeah.
What a joy. Yeah, because I don't think we've ever met before. I saw your like bits, I guess, like popping up in my feed, and I was like, oh, this guy's hilarious. Follow. Oh, and he's Canadian, even better.
Oh,
Uh,
thanks, man.
yeah, yeah. So when I asked you about the one word, what was it about forward that you wanted to pick that word?
I I didn't really know what to do, and I basically have kind of made a resolution to just kind of try to make decisions faster and just do more stuff instead of being like caught in some type of decision paralysis. And
Right.
so just make a decision, move forward, and then kind of keep going because I was overthinking it, and then I was like, no, this is another thing that I'm overthinking. So
Yeah,
I'm going
yeah.
to with starting with your show, basically, I'm like, all right, I'm not going to overthink this. I'm going to get move
Nice.
forward, and now it's happening.
Yeah, we're committing to that word. That's the
Yeah,
word. I love it too. Everyone's like, you're the only podcast that gives homework before the show.
ah,
Alex
that's not
Pavone
too
was
bad.
like, I was stressing out. Like, I didn't know what to pick.
yeah,
I was like,
I think there's something about the brevity of it that probably makes people like
yeah.
a little stressed.
Because it's like the idea of like narrowing it down to one word. But that's what's interesting to me is like
For
it
sure.
is you have to really think about it. And it's such a trivial thing, right? It's just the theme of the show. It's not even something that we necessarily stay on for like a long period of time, but like it just sort of gives an insight into each person for somebody maybe that comes to this show and they're looking at the guests and maybe they don't know a lot of the people because like I'm so deep in the comedy world that sometimes I forget that some people I was like, oh yeah, I was at Yuck Yucks the other weekend and this chick was like, what's a Yuck Yucks? Like she had
Ah,
no idea because they're just not a comedy fan. So it's like I'm always thinking from that point of view, like what would intrigue someone into, oh, okay, maybe I'll check that
I
out.
think in Canada that's probably a good
Yeah, because most people aren't
play.
known.
yeah.
I feel like it's happening though. I feel like there is actually this, there's this weird thing that happens when America, our ally, starts attacking us in a way of saying that they want to absorb us. And you kind of go from a country that used to say they had, we have no kind of identity really. Like we have the tropes about Canadians, but that doesn't really describe Canada that well. It's such a multicultural place. Like, how can you describe being Canadian? And then this has sort of forced us to create an identity that we're like proud of.
Well, it's funny that it took this,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
if this even works, because especially in the entertainment industry, Canada will always see itself through the eyes of America.
Right.
Like people are always like, they're always like, man, Canadian comedians are incredible. And then you're like, yeah, yes, who do you like? And then they name a bunch of Canadians who have gotten famous in
Jim
the States.
Carrey,
Yeah, sure, Seth
Mike
Rogen, and
Myers.
I mean, those guys aren't, some of the best guys. I'm not
Yeah,
saying they're
yeah,
not. It's
yeah.
just,
You're like, there's so
it's
much
interesting
more.
that the country, we won't, as a country, just let us like someone who still lives here.
Yeah. It should have started happening when they shut down, Much Music Video on Trial. Second that show ended, we should have been rioting, trying to form a. When Bell Media decided to take over every radio station, we should have been like, hell no, we need some identity left. When Sirius XM decided to take over Canadian comedy and then decide immediately to play American comedy on their stations,
yeah,
that reaction should have happened at a national level.
that was a step. At least people got mad about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I try not to be too defeatist about it, but
Yeah.
I think
We
that
don't get
requires
mad
not
enough. I
thinking
think
about
that's the
it too much.
problem.
Yeah, you think?
I think we
Maybe
don't get
America
mad
gets mad
enough.
too much, though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's got to be like a balance, you know? A little bit of a balance would be nice. Like maybe like Quebec mad. right? Where like you want to do something, but like you're kind of
Sure.
like, you're not a pushover, but you let it know that you're not happy with the situation.
Yeah.
Uh, Let's talk about your latest comedy special, Live at Majestic. I always love talking to comics about their hour, like how you built towards that, because you're, a two-time Juno nominated comic for Comedy Album of the Year. That's something to be said, especially in the Canadian comedy industry. Maybe a lot of comedians looking up to you in that regard. So I think like any insights that you have on what your process looks like when you're building an hour. I don't know if you want to talk on that. I don't really have a direct question per
No,
se.
I'll talk about whatever you want, man. It's your
Yeah,
show. I pick my word, and that's the amount of, and
yeah.
it's
That's
it's
my,
on you
that's
from
it.
here. I It's always different. I always think I have such a love for long form comedy, which is for someone who posts the amount of clips that I do, you probably wouldn't guess that. But I'm just trying to play the game. I'm really hoping that enough people will see a 90-second clip and just, go to YouTube and watch the full thing. That's really what I'm after. But I love like building an hour. I always am gently just trying to write new stuff all the time. Like literally, and I'm not exaggerating. Like every time I'm on stage, even if it's 15 new seconds, that will be enough that'll keep me
Hmm.
keep my head in the game. And I think when I do stand up, because of where I live, and in cities, everything is really like I'm gonna go do spots. I'm gonna work on 7 or 8 minutes at a time. Like I still do that, but 70% of the time, I'd say I'm on stage, I'm doing an hour. I'm either touring or I'm going to go like headline a club, or otherwise I'm just going to stay home.
Right.
So I always am just constantly just working on new stuff. What I used to do, and I kind of still do this, but I used to say, I'm going to write 2 minutes a week until the beginning of November, which would give you about 80 minutes. But I never said that you had to write, this is the key part. You don't have to write 2 good minutes. You just have
Okay.
to have
Two
your best
minutes.
estimation of your best estimation
Right.
of what 2 minutes, your best 2 minutes that you write that week.
Yeah. About 350 words. That's all you got.
350 words. So you take that until the beginning of October, and then at the beginning of October, I think you're at 80 minutes. You cut half of it. Half of it you
Okay.
just throw in the trash because you were never that precious about it to begin with. And some stuff like you write and then you tuck away, and then all of a sudden the joke that you wrote was not good, but it had one line which later
Hmm.
fits into another joke. So then what I would do is I would spend like 2 months like kind of getting that hour ready, and then I would perform it at the end of December, and then kind of start the process anew the next year. Because I
Right.
think when I started doing stand up where I'm from here, there was just not that many stand ups around. So I was
Where are
doing a
you
lot of
from for
bumps.
people?
Oh, right. I'm from
Yeah.
Newfoundland. So,
Yeah,
like,
we
when I
didn't
started
say.
doing stand up, there was like, I mean, there's a lot of comedy, but the stand up scene was like, there was 10 people. Like,
Right.
there was nothing here. So I just knew that at the time, Louis C.K. was the greatest comedian. So he was writing an hour every year because Carlin wrote an hour every year. So I was like,
Crazy.
I guess that's just what you have to do. And
Yeah.
no one around me told me that that was stupid. So I wrote a bunch of bad
You
stuff,
won
but
every
I'm used
two
to doing it.
days.
Yeah,
But you get it all out of the way, right? Like it's the bottom part of the iceberg.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're writing all of this new material, I understand that you're going back and you're cutting it out. But when you're doing the hour, are you and you've chosen your jokes, obviously, out of this like cutting
Yeah.
process of writing 80 minutes, cutting it down to like 40, then maybe working on 20 more minutes to kind of get it up to that hour. Are you like theming anything? Are you trying to put certain jokes together? Like, are you starting with, here's more, family related material at the beginning, and then I'll put the more riskier stuff towards the end, or risky, whatever that means to each individual.
Yeah, that's funny. I think risky for me means something very different than it
Yeah,
does for a lot of
yeah.
people. I guess that's really a
Yeah,
matter of taste.
yeah.
Um, I That's a good question. On my latest one, I was definitely the first album I did was just like these are the best jokes I have that I feel are done. if that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
So unexisting is exhausting. I'm like, this is just the best hour of comedy I could do. So the album I did after that was like pandemic driven. So I just
Hmm.
did that during the pandemic because I was in St. John's and you were allowed to have 35 people.
Oh,
So I
cool.
was just like doing a show a month for just 35 people. So I was for COVID
That's
time,
pretty
I was
good.
very practiced, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I was always starting all these shows with these weird riffs about what was going on with COVID, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, that takes up 35 minutes. So I made an enormous miscalculation, which was to think that as soon as like we crossed over to the year 2021, no one would ever talk about COVID again. So I thought that I really had to record this now, or no one
Yeah,
will
yeah, yeah.
want to
It's
hear
not
it.
going to be relevant.
Right. So anyway, I was wrong about that, but the album turned out
Uh,
fine. But I could have let
yeah.
it cook for a little while longer.
No, but
And then
I think what you release it a year later. I think there's this weird part where if you talk about COVID now in 2025, it's almost like you get people like, oh, do we have to?
I
Like
know.
that 1 year felt like 5 years.
I understand that, and people were saying that then, like while I was doing it, and I think the reality is a lot of
Yeah,
people like comedy as a vehicle for escape,
for sure. Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was not willing to give it to them.
But that's the funniest part about comedy too, is like there are certain comedians that will never talk about like anything that's happening right now. And you can
Yeah,
see those comedians. And that's amazing that they can just keep coming up with like funky observations on whatever, right?
yeah,
Like while a major pandemic is going on. But like I myself could not separate the two. Like how do you not talk about the biggest elephant in the room? Hey, isn't it weird that we're all in a room wearing masks?
yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Like, you would be psychotic not to be mentioning what is actually happening. So, but I totally get it from the perspective of someone just trying to escape. It'd be
And
like
for
watching
me
a
as a
movie.
viewer, that's my favorite thing to watch. I
Yeah,
would wait.
yeah.
You like those guys that you're talking about who have those like timeless observations that are
Yeah.
just that's my favorite kind of comedy. I just don't have the skill set to do it, or I don't yet. I'd like to develop it. And then the new special is just kind of anything that's education based. So I kind of have a loose theme. Kind of what I'm toying with now is like the ideas of like just having a kid and technology are like the two ones that I'm kind of diving into now. So it's
Okay.
always like what's on theme for the special, and if there's anything else that I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this for very long, either because I'm
Mm.
very sick of it or because it's kind of current events.
I would rather want to be getting rid of a joke because maybe the current event thing is going to expire versus I'm sick of it, let me just record it. Because it's like you have to then like realize that I've done this too much and then get over that and then find the excitement again for the
Yeah,
final, like
it's
it's this
hard.
full circle moment to be like, all right, think about the first time I thought of this joke. Like that's what it was the funniest to me. The first
Yeah.
time I performed it. Like I was talking to Ron James about like doing a new bit and I was like first time I did it on stage, did so well. I was like, wow, I was expecting it to like eat. I just fed so many tags into this joke that I was like, I'm gonna cut like 90% of these tags. I'm just gonna give them to the audience and see which one that they like until they get tired and then just move on to the
Sure, yeah.
punchline, right?
It's a good
Just
strategy.
beat them to death with tags. And
Yeah.
then it all did well. And I was like, oh, great. And then I did it the second time, didn't do well at all. And he's like,
Right.
oh, that he's like at Second City, he's like, we call that the second show blues, where there's just you don't have the same level of excitement in the
Oh
material because you're
God.
not performing it for the first time. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that makes so much sense. I
It's
was just
hard too because
expecting it to do well the second time, right? Instead
do
of
you think
just
it was
being
because you were
like,
confident about it, or
I was too
because
confident. I was
yeah, it's
overconfident.
never good.
Yeah, yeah,
It's sometimes too just the magic of how nervous you are trying something new. I think just makes them laugh. And sometimes I've had stuff that killed the first time I did it, and then I waste 6 months trying to chase this joke that is clearly not good. I was just lucky enough to have like the right group of
yeah.
freaks that enjoyed the same thing that I did,
Right.
and then it just bombs forever, and it's so hard to let go of.
Yeah, you're like, what was with those shows? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's even like you'll even have times where you're doing like an 8 and a 10 o'clock and you're doing the exact same set and then just for whatever reason doesn't work 2 hours later.
Oh, well,
Like,
the 10 o'clock show's always worse.
oh,
So
it's
it's
always
like
worse. Yeah.
you can kill on the first show, and then if the second show is not so good, you're like, oh, kind of a rough night. But your brain forgets about the good show from earlier.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're just hyper focused on the worst was when you do. Did you ever? I'm sure you did. You performed at like the Rivoli, right?
I
Yeah,
did, yeah.
yeah. You ever bomb at the Rivoli?
I have violently.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad because like
Yeah.
you have to like walk through the crowd and then out when you're leaving. Oh,
Oh,
that
it's
place.
I struggled there. I had a night there that I hosted, and I bombed off the top. I forgot two comics' names.
Oh,
It was one of the most hellish nights I ever had in
oh
comedy. And
man.
I always kind of had a rougher time at the Rivoli. And the last set I did there, I had one of the best sets of my life,
Oh,
and it was
nice.
great. But that room really had my number for a long time.
It's one of those ones where you have to fight. Because you're up super high and
Yeah, it's
you're like
unnatural.
so looking down, your voice is just going over their heads.
Yeah,
it's such a weird spot. You think it would work. It would work for music. It's like a perfect music setting. Because in
for
that
sure.
scenario, everyone's standing, so you want the band to be a little bit higher.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
But with a comedy show, like I need you like right in front of me, you know?
Yeah.
Put me on the
And it's
floor.
not too good to have to be so much above them.
No, it's weird. It's like you're talking like you're like doing self-deprecating jokes as you are physically above them.
Yeah.
It's not coming
Yeah.
off well.
It doesn't quite work. It's because it's the height of a stage that you would need a theater. Because I love the setup of that room.
Yeah.
I love the tables and the little candles on
But
the
I
tables
tell
and
you,
stuff.
man, if they just put a low-rise black stage in front of the stage and then put all your banners up on the high part, all the banners, put all your Alt Thought Comedy Lounge, put all the
Sure.
JFL, whatever banners, Sirius XM, and then have you on a lower stage, you'd do 10 times better in that room.
I agree. Is that room still that room's over though, right? Like
I feel like they brought it back. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. That was part of the reason. I mean, I left. I'm in Ottawa now, but I left Toronto
okay.
in like the middle of COVID because everything was closing. I was like, why am I paying to be here when all my
Right.
favorite places are closed? Like I'm just
Yeah.
paying too much for an apartment in a dangerous area. Like what the fuck?
Yeah.
I was like, no, time to go. But
Yeah. It's so you moved out of Toronto and went back. Did you go are you going back to Ottawa? Like is that where you're
I
from?
was from Brockville, so it's like
Okay.
Ottawa adjacent. Ottawa was just like the closest city to Brockville. Because I was like, I want to at least be able to like get up at Yuck Yucks if I want to go
Yeah.
to Laugh Lounge. So it's like close. So that's why I picked Ottawa, but I'm wanting to come back to Toronto because clearly everything's like up and running now. There's like new comedy clubs open.
Yeah. That's not perfect anywhere, but
Yeah,
Toronto's Toronto's definitely it's a great city to do comedy in.
yeah, man, I miss just being able to like hop from like show to show to show. That was like the coolest part.
Yeah, that is very nice.
Yeah. Mike Radio was talking about how since he moved to where is he at now? Like Wasaga Beach area. That was
Yeah.
like one of his things. He's like, oh man, I miss just like someone calls up like, hey, we need you to come down here and do a spot. Like, okay, I'll be right there. And then you just
Oh
run out your
yeah.
door, get on the subway, and you're there in like 10 minutes.
It's missed. I do not have that either, and it's an enormous advantage. I try
Yeah.
to get into Toronto for like about a total of 2 months out of the year, and just kind of do that, and
Yeah.
kind of try to be diligent when I'm there. Of like, I have some new stuff that I'm just gonna hammer for a week, and then
That's nice though. I find like when you're visiting a place like that, you're coming there with intention. You get so much more out of it, right? It's not just
yeah.
like if you live, I think people that live there sometimes may take that for granted and they go, ah, I'll go out tomorrow night. And it's like, you know, how many people would kill to be hitting the spots that are available to you.
Oh, you better not kill. If anyone
Yeah.
ever committed a murder in the name of doing spots in Toronto, they deserve all the sentence they
I need those comedy spots.
get.
Not literally. Come on now. Um, yeah, one question that I always ask my guests, and the question is essentially like, what advice would you give to your younger self? But I want to personalize it a little bit more. I want you to think of yourself at 15 years old. Imagine where you were at that time, what you were doing, and the phone rings and it's you now on the other end, and you can give your younger self a piece of advice. It's not going to impact your life whatsoever. Your life is already set in motion, but you might be able to change his. What advice do you give him?
As a comedian or as like a guy?
Whatever you want. It's you. It's a younger version of you.
I would say be restrictive with your internet use now in terms of how smart you are, or sorry, how often you're using the internet. Like right now, it's I am trying to rebuild my attention span
Mm.
and kind of just this awareness of I don't have all that long free time that I think makes for great writing and creativity that you're kind of just sitting there kind of bored, kind of just scribbly. Like it's I'm so quick now to look at my phone or to just, do anything. And I have been for years and years. So I'm trying now to get myself out of that. And it's so difficult.
You're gonna need
So
a
I literally,
typewriter.
I would, yeah. Oh, buddy, I thought about that. Well, we do have one in our house, but it seems absurd to,
Yeah, it's really
that's too
crazy.
much.
Any
Yeah.
mistake you make, you're like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know. I, I think even a desktop computer would probably
Yeah,
be far enough back
yeah.
in the
A
right
Windows
direction.
95.
Yeah, but I would also just say that, and I would probably say just talk less. So much of life is just like, oh God, I should say this is a terrible thing to say on a podcast, but so much of life is like, oh, I feel like I should say something, and then just saying stuff. Then it's like you get a bit older, you're like, well, I actually don't have to say anything, and it's better
Yeah.
to kind of just kick back and listen a little bit. So,
Yeah, totally. I remember I heard someone say, like, you have two ears and one mouth, use them proportionately.
see, that's perfect.
And it's like, yeah, 100%, because there's so many times where just not saying anything would have been much better in any situation.
Yeah, you never regret listening to something.
No,
You know,
yeah, totally. Well, sometimes.
well, sometimes, yeah.
It depends on who's talking.
Yeah,
Uh,
as I said that, I was like, I don't know if I believe what I just said.
you're like immediately like refuting
I
it.
just mean I definitely have regret stuff that I have said out loud. I
For
definitely
sure,
said
for
something.
sure.
I've been like, why did I bother even letting that out there?
Those moments are the worst. Like
Oh
especially
yeah.
like in a relationship fight and you say something and then you're just like, "Oh God, that's gonna be taken the wrong way for sure."
Oh yeah.
And then you're just going over that in your head. You're like, "Oh, what an idiot. Fuck."
Well, especially those when you're trying to work out how you feel by talking out loud,
Oh
and
yeah,
then you're
not
like, I
good.
never even said what I wanted to say. So now I've
I just work
just
out how
off.
I feel with ChatGPT now.
Oh God. Do you use ChatGPT a lot?
All the time.
Do
That
you
thing's
really? What do you look up on it?
yeah,
I don't
everything. I use it every single day. It is
really.
unbelievable. Yeah, so we're friends. Like I fight with ChatGPT all the time. I'll tell it like, you're doing this wrong. Like, you ever see
What are you
Whiplash?
asking it to do?
You ever see Whiplash?
Oh
Where
yeah,
you, where
I've
you just
seen
keep
Whiplash.
smacking him in the face? That's me with ChatGPT. I'm
Are you rushing or are you dragging? You're giving
yeah.
that you're J.K. Simmons.
Yeah. So I use it for this podcast. It has a memory that it keeps updated. So I've told it everything I need for the podcast. So I need YouTube description, a tweet promoting it. I need um, ideas for clips, ideas for thumbnails, ideas for YouTube titles that will entice people to want to watch the episode.
Right.
And then I say, remember this as a podcast template. And every time I need it, I'm going to ask you for the podcast template and I'm going to give you the information about the guest and what we talked about. And then I'm going to ask you to generate that. And it's like, cool, got it. And
Mm.
sure enough, every time I come back to it and I say, like, hey, here's episode whatever, this is the person I talked to, here's what we talked about, it just pumps out what would be like an hour's work in 10 seconds.
Wow.
And
That's
obviously, it's not perfect. I have to go through it and take out some
right.
stuff where I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I would never say that, so let me just get that out of there.
Yeah.
But I could even
I
tell it
have to
that.
do that with my own writing.
Hey, punch this up, won't you?
Yeah. I'm just kind of scared of it because like I don't fly first class. I don't
Okay.
I've never been on a flight
Neither
where I've
have
been like
I.
I'm gonna spend $700 to have six
Yeah.
inches more leg room.
Yeah.
But I
Business.
do worry that like if I ever did do it and I would get used to it, I would
Mm.
have a hard time going back. And that's honestly how I feel about Chat GPT also.
Okay, here's how I feel about that. When they invented the car, the guy that was making horse buggies was probably like, ah, this car thing is a fad. If I use the car, I'm gonna lose my horse, and then I'm gonna have no need for my horse. So I'm gonna keep using my horse. It's just a tool. It's just a new tool, right?
I
Like
know, but like counterpoint, I wish I had a
counterpoint.
horse.
I still wish I had a horse. I get
I
what you're
wish I had a
saying.
horse now.
I get what you're saying in terms of like everything can be used in the wrong way, right? Like a hammer is really great when it has a nail to hit, and then otherwise you're just being destructive if you're swinging a hammer with
Oh, I
nothing.
like that.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's the same thing with you have to use anything like this with intention. So your phone shouldn't be something that you just pick up and scroll through. It's something that you use to run your business. It's like how you are booking comedy shows and promoting your shows and like, and then it goes away. It's just like a tool, right? Like, and then I
Hmm.
think once you sort of separate like church and state like that in your mind of like, this is just a tool for the thing I need to do and then my personal life, I can read a book and actually get through it, or like write some material, or go to a
Yeah.
museum and not need to like take a photo of every painting I look at. Like,
Sure. Oh, yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
I've done that.
There's
We
so many
went
times
to a
where I pull
big.
out my phone and I'm like, what am I doing? Why is this out? I'm at a concert. Why am I not just enjoying the concert?
Oh, once a year, I try to take a picture of the moon, and I'm
Yeah,
sure that this is going to be the one
this
time
is
I
the
take a
one.
picture of the moon that's actually good. And
Well,
it's always
that's what
like,
they
what a piece of shit.
advertise. That's what they advertise. They always advertise like, oh, the new Samsung Galaxy camera can like take a super good photo of the moon, and it never can. It never works.
No.
It's never that way. They're using a telescopic lens for sure or something.
Yeah.
One question too that I love asking comedians especially is because this life is so like you're out late nights, you're gone on the weekends if you're doing like club shows and stuff, and you just said you had a child as well. Like, how do you balance sort of like family, personal life with this other comedy life? Is it like a set of expectations for like a partner? Or is it sort of I don't know, give and take in a lot of situations? Like, how do
Hmm.
you navigate that?
I think especially now with like my son is only 9 months old, so the idea of balance and routine right now is honestly
Yeah.
it's almost absurd. It's something to aspire towards, but I'm just really not there yet. In terms of like how I used to do it with my wife before, but I read that Mega Mullally and uh, oh my god, I forget his name. Ron Swanson. What's his real name?
Oh,
Nick Offerman, right.
okay,
So
yeah,
they're married and they're obviously both very busy. And I read an interview with them where they're like, if we're ever apart for more than 21 days, one of us is getting on a flight. So it's like, okay, 21 days used to be but now I'm trying to do like 8 or 9. Like I'm kind of what I'm trying to do now is be very, I'm doing what I've been calling it a reverse Alberta.
yeah.
So,
Okay, go on.
so everyone like there's a bunch of Newfoundlanders. Most of them were like tradesmen and stuff. They go to
Yeah.
Alberta for 3 weeks. They come back for a week. They go out for
Okay.
three. So I'm trying to go out for about 10 days and come back for 20. So like go somewhere on a Thursday. Ideally, do a Thursday show, do a weekend show, and then take off Monday, Tuesday, and then try to work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then and Saturday, and then go home the next Sunday. So that's
Nice.
kind of what I've been trying to do. But like basically now, there's certainly an element of just trying to tread water and be just trying to really gently keep my career going forward, just because children are like babies for such a short period of time that is like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
if you're like what's the balance? It's like, well, right now there is not a balance because my son is definitely the priority. There's no way around it. My
Yeah, yeah,
career
yeah. Has to
is
be.
to is third place right now. And that's fine. I just like for me, I just like I gotta make my living and I gotta make sure that I don't, you know, kind of lose my skill set or take any steps back. And like we were pretty diligent with like before we had the kid. I worked like I did like 5 months straight, pretty much. I would just go home for a little bit. I did like 5 weeks straight on a cruise ship. I did
Wow.
like getting ready to record that special. I think I ran it like 47 times.
Man,
So
it's
I was
amazing.
working like crazy. And then as soon as the special was out, as soon as we recorded the special, like 2 months later, I had a baby. So then
Wow.
there was a bunch of like internal work that had to be done that was not stand up or traveling because it's like this needs to be edited and we need to get our ducks in order. So uh,
Yeah.
and now that I all the kind of goodwill I've built up for myself now has been spent, so now I have to try to figure out. So this is a question you'd have to ask me again in a year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Once you've got it all straightened out. No, but I like that you had this, you have the anticipation of the baby coming, so you work extra hard so that you can provide yourself now a little bit of breathing room for
Yeah,
the the most foundational part of like being a human is being around both parents for those like early years, right?
that's a very good question, Johnny. I'm honestly kind of curious.
Something I struggle with.
What is it? Oh, me too. So I would like. What's the best answer you've heard to that? Because I'm sure you've asked other people that. Has anyone told you
Oh,
something that you're like, oh, that's
no,
really sharp?
this is what I'm realizing. No one has the magic beans.
Ah, yeah,
No one is perfect in this area whatsoever, and it's probably because the idea of being like a professional stand-up comedian, like that's how you make your income. That's a relatively new job. You know?
yeah, yeah,
So I think we have to go easy on ourselves a little bit for not being able to like necessarily have it down pat of like, here's how I do this, right?
yeah,
And that's what I mean like by I think no one really has the answers, but I do think that there's becoming sort of like best practices because you're right. The way that you make your money and the way that you're going to be able to afford a life for your family is by being on the road, is by being creative and still being like a good comic on stage. And that takes repetition and doing this a
yeah,
lot. So there has to be sort of like an expectation set at like an early stage with your partner of being like, I might not be home all the time. Like, I
yeah,
have to like go out and do these things. And you're lucky too if you find someone that's like, yeah, cool, whatever. Like I have my own hobbies, or I
sure,
have
yeah,
something that I can also preoccupy myself with.
yeah,
Um, but I think for sure, like it's one of those things that I just think about all the time, all the time.
yeah. It's tricky, but I think relationship wise, it's one, there's communication and setting expectations is pretty key. And then two, you know, if I don't make any money, still no,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah, yeah,
problem as well. So it's like,
yeah,
which problem would you like to tackle first?
yeah, yeah. Uh,
So it's kind of trying to, you know, try to
the
make as much as you can with as little time as you can, and then
Yeah. The other thing too that nobody knows how to do, comedians that I've spoken to, is how to turn it off.
oh, I
This
don't have this problem.
this this jack in the box in your head of trying to relax and then it's like I should be working.
Yeah.
I should be writing a joke right now. I like what am I doing on a beach? What like how do you
Are you having a hard time with that right now?
I think always is just like
Mm.
there's this expectation for myself of like never taking a moment and just working. Like just working until something happens.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, well, in the interest of being, you mentioned a couple minutes ago about trying to be gentle or take it easy with yourself.
True.
And I think that is enormously important, and it's something that I have put a lot of work into because I have realized that um, there's no correlation between how hard I am on myself and how well of work I'm doing. So I did read this thing once that it was like if beating yourself up would have worked, it would have by now. So there's a couple things that I like to remember. One, I definitely can get into these mind states where I'm like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. I think there's two things that are very important to remember, and they're from very different angles. Number one is we all have this idea that we should be working 8 hours a day, but that's like that was an amount of time that was set in the
Yeah.
early 1900s for people who worked at factories for how long they could stand up without getting like plantar fasciitis. So now people like there's this like subconscious thing that it's like if I don't write jokes for 8 hours a day,
Mhm.
that's it's
Can
not
I even
it's
call
never
myself a
mental work.
comic?
It's not even how it's meant to be. Like I think a realistic goal is like two good bursts of like 2 hours, two and a
I,
half hours, and that's what I'm trying to do now is that. And the other thing I would try to remember is that if I'm 70 years old and I have been lucky enough to make a living as a comedian and I didn't have any fun, I would be so goddamn mad. At a certain point, you have to be like, I have a fun job. I'm letting anyone who does not have a fun job down if I'm not
yeah.
having fun at my own fun job, you know? So
You're not
I'm
having
fighting to
fun
remember
at
those things.
you're not having fun at living your dream.
Yeah.
Kind of fucking life is that? Yeah, yeah, of
Oh, yeah.
course.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Every time you
that's
sit
why
down to write should be like the most fun thing ever. You're like, it's exciting. This is the beginning of like what's gonna be a great joke.
yeah. But I even think in terms of sitting down to write, I'm trying to get better at that. But with stand up, I think it's more important to kind of live. And this is the key thing. And this is something I took from Mitch Hedberg was like, the only rule in this is whenever you have something that might be funny, you have to write it down. So
Hmm.
like my Evernote has like thousands and thousands of things, most of which I'll never look at again, but they are there in case,
Right.
you know.
Or what else he said though? He said, unless my paper and pen is too far away, then I have to
Yeah,
convince myself that it's not
the
that
one I
funny.
said ain't funny. Yeah, I still think he's the best of all time for
The
my money.
best.
Yeah,
Do you know Emmett Morrison?
I don't.
He's an Ottawa comic and he's like Hedberg-esque, like in his own way. He has these like really, really funny one-liners. Like just yeah, killer comic.
Oh yeah, I saw John Steinberg the other night. I was working at
Steinberg's
Yucks, and
great
like
too.
some of those jokes, I was like, that's every word is necessary and chosen in an interesting way, and I love that style. And I wish I was. I wish I just
Yeah.
spoke in sentences.
David Green is like that too. He's like a British comic that lives in St. Catharines, I think. Um, he's just like one-liner, like super punny with everything. But I was like, man, I can't imagine like just doing that straight for an hour. Or like Jimmy Carr, like what he does too, straight for an
Yeah,
hour. Like Anthony Jeselnik, yeah,
Justin Like, yeah.
that for an
So
hour, like
he was at the Great Outdoors Comedy Festival, and I saw him, and he was the most impressive comic I saw that weekend. Like
interesting.
just the diligence and the how he plays with silences, I think is I wonder how much he tests that out. Like how long if I pause here is too long versus because it's
Right.
fragments of a second really can change things. And when I really get rolling, I love to just try to pace myself a little slowly. I admire people who can do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not an option. But if you're in a theater and people's attention and they're in a nice chair a little bit,
Yeah.
you can kind of
You can
sit
kind of
in
play
it.
with that. Yeah. Do you know who just did that? I think really well was Shane Gillis when he hosted SNL and he
I
was
haven't seen
doing,
that yet.
dude, he was doing this monologue where he's like, "Well, there's something that, we always ask women, but it's like, I'm not proud, right? Like it's not, and it's a little racist, but we all do it at some point or another. We ask, have you ever And then he kind of pauses, and
Yeah.
within a millisecond, he goes, "See, you're all thinking it right now." And that gets like a huge
Yeah.
laugh. Just like keeping that quick, like silence of like, you're just watching this through the TV, but you know that whole audience knew, based on his expression, knew exactly what he was talking about.
Well, there's tension there
There's
still,
so
you
much
know?
tension. It's nothing.
It's
It's great tension building, great use of like a space like that, and then just hitting a punchline without even needing to say what the actual thing is. Crazy. Just crazy.
yeah.
There's a lot of
It's
really good
good. Once you
Philly
lose the
comics.
fear of like the silence, it's beneficial for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Also, you got to write less if you know
If
you
you
just
sit
say
in
less
silence,
stuff.
just you just say a lot of things that make people real quiet.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. Um, Matt, I'm gonna share your social media stuff here too for people watching on YouTube. It's at Matt Wright Comic. All the links are in the description and mattwrightcomedy.com. That's where you can watch your special on YouTube live at the Majestic, and they can get your
Thanks, man.
electronic press kit.
Yeah, the people long for the
People
press
love
kit.
EPKs.
Well, I put it up there because it's like
It's for like corporate,
really,
right?
it's just for people who listen to your podcast who are not comedians. The idea of an electronic press kit is anytime someone hires you or books you, they have your photos there and your bio is there, and any like quotes people have about you that they could potentially use. So I was like, this is perfect. I'll do this, and then I won't get all these emails asking me for a headshot or a bio. And you
Nope.
wouldn't believe,
Still
no
gotta
one
go.
looks, no one.
It's right there. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, great. I won't have to ask him for his headshot. It's right there on the website. Because we're professional here at the Johnny Rogers Show.
I love it. I mean,
Uh,
your setup's great.
Thanks, man. Brian O'Gorman had the best description. He said it looks like I'm in a Las Vegas bathroom.
Yeah, he's right. It does.
I was like dying laughing. I was like, wow, that's so funny.
I mean, it looks great. I have a similar setup with it's not comedy records, it's just like
Oh,
music records, but to just what's the one there to your left shoulder? Is that a Johnny Carson? I can't quite
this
see
one
it. That
here?
one. Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, it's here's Johnny Magic Moments from the Tonight Show.
That's great. I've been
That's
watching some old late night lately and
I loved it.
it's
They have
it's
like all
really
the guests
fun.
in the back. The
So it's
craziest.
fun because I was talking to a friend because with podcasts now everything is so when they first came out, it was, oh wow, people are just kind of chatting and it's loose and it's not polished and they're not trying to be funny and it was kind of refreshing. But now it's like everyone has heard. And I don't know. I think Brad Pitt is the only guy I've never heard on a podcast. Everyone else I've heard on a
Really?
podcast. Yeah, I think so.
Oh
Like,
man.
but I would,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
mystique of celebrity is gone. So now I'm kind of looking at these old interviews and I admire uh, just the show businessy of it all. Just like we have
Yeah,
to have a
yeah.
conversation that everyone knows is fake, and I'm gonna try to get some laughs in and stuff. And it's I almost I enjoy the effort of it.
Yeah, it's such a bygone era of like this big, like fancy production of,
Yeah,
you're gonna come in here, you're gonna deliver your bits off the couch like it's conversational and
yeah,
yeah, and then we're like, all right, throw to commercial.
yeah. And then you pretend to talk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're just kind of like murmuring nothing. That's
Yeah,
so funny. Yeah, I always thought about that. It'd be like cool to have like a late night show. And then the more I got into podcasting, I was like, oh, I like this a lot more.
yeah. I think honestly, it would be. I've been trying to work that out, but I think it's my dream. That's a confident way to
You
put
know
that
what
out into
my
the
dream?
universe.
You know what my dream is? I would
What's that?
love to host a game show. Doesn't matter what the
Oh
game show is.
yeah.
Come on, Canada Family Feud. I'll take that from Jerry D any day.
Oh, that's
There,
one of the last times I got truly jealous. I
oh
am
yeah.
pretty good in terms of when I see someone get something, I'm usually like good for them. When I saw that he was
Yeah.
doing that, I was like, I'm
He doesn't even look like he enjoys it though. Like when you
that's
watch
just his
it,
kind of shtick
I
though.
guess, but he looks like, oh, why am I here? Like he has that like sort of demeanor about him that's very like Jeremy Hot's, just like, oh.
Well, yeah, yeah, but some families are better than others, I'm
Yeah, yeah.
sure, and some of them are I would love it. I love old game show bloopers. There's something about like those first couple decades where people weren't used to the idea of television that like,
Right.
oh, it's there's something more genuine about it.
Now you have people that are like hyper aware that they might go viral.
I
Like
know.
and they're trying to
God.
like play to that. Like there's this show that I watch all the time. His name's Caleb Hammer. He does like financial audits. And it's the
Okay.
best because he's giving these people that are making terrible decisions with their money, he's giving them like real advice and he's kind of like being a hard ass about it. Like
Hmm.
he's like, you owe the bank $13,000, you owe your mom $4,000. Why are you paying for Spotify Premium? So like he like nitpicks the tiniest things. He's like, listen to it with ads. He goes, that then put that money towards that. Like what you're spending your money so erratically here. And he's like looking at their bank statement. He's like, DoorDash, DoorDash, DoorDash,
Yeah.
DoorDash. He's like, what's going on? Like no wonder why you can't like pay off these debts or whatever. But what was my point about that? Oh yeah, there's people on there though that go on there because they know it's like a every clip gets like a million views. So
Right.
they're trying to be almost like the most ridiculous person, even though that's not really them. And
Mm,
he's really good at like sussing that out and being like, no, like I can tell you're just here for the wrong reasons. So like get off the show. Like we're done here. He'll just
yeah.
end the
Oh,
interview
good.
like immediately.
It's a really tricky time because, you know, of course you would want a lot of viewers on your stuff, I guess, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this idea of like, I've become hyper aware as someone who, as of like the back half of last year, I'm like, I'm going to try to be someone who posts a lot of stuff. I really made like a diligent effort to, and I still am. And in some ways, it's great. That's what I loved about the special. The special, it was like, oh, I put out an hour, people actually watched it, and they left like thoughtful feedback. Because
Nice.
people who are watching stuff for an hour are engaging with it from an honest place, and they're not just swiping
Totally.
through and seeing it. But I found like my most popular online videos that I've ever done, like clips, right? Both of them, I have one that has like 2 million, and I have a TikTok right now that has 700,000. I hate both of them. So the reason they're going well
Uh-huh.
is they're by far the two most viewed things I've ever put up in a short form. The reason they're going well is because people are arguing about it in the comments.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what's making them see well. So like I have these videos of jokes that I love,
Rage
like
bait.
I spent 8 years on. Uh, and then 400 people will watch it, and then I have this TikTok where
Isn't
there's
that
like
the worst?
800 people. They're all yelling at each other, and every now and then someone calls me fat. It's just like this is what success looks like in this era. That's so shitty. That is so fundamentally shitty, and
Uh,
it's hard to not let that
that's
warp
the
your
internet,
mind.
man. That's just
I
the
know.
internet. Like so in like 2017, 2016, I started working at this like YouTube studio and I was making like I would write scripts for them and then I would make videos and it was about like a range of stuff. Like I would
Right.
be talking about comic books one day, video games another day, and then celebrity news another day for a different channel. They had like all these different channels. And I would always like when I first started there, I was like, maybe I'll get some fans because there's so many people that watch these videos. And I'd be going through the
Mhm.
comments and like early on, I had to be like, all right, I can never look at comments. Like I could not, I have to just do the thing and put it out there and then just ne and walk away. Like never look at it. Because one comment would be like, oh my God, you're a genius. This is the best thing I've ever seen. Like I love this.
Yeah.
And then the next person is like, I hate the way you say nuclear.
Right.
And your hair's fucked up and like your shirt looks wrinkled and like well and they'll just point out every single insecurity and ones you've never even thought
Oh
of.
yeah. I got to be honest. I'm on the other side of this. I read all of them. I read everything, and
You
some of
print
it
them
I'm
out
like,
and read them like the New York Times.
I wish that'd actually be a better use of my time. But I do look at it, and it's kind of fascinating to see yourself discussed. Like people will comment on your videos, and then like if like you do a video of you reacting to something.
Yeah.
Someone will write back to be like, the first guy was like this, but then the second guy sucks. And you want to like, I don't write back, but I want to be like, dude, I'm the second guy. Like you might as well have
Yeah,
texted me this
yeah, yeah,
critique.
yeah.
Like, do you not realize?
You should, man. You just
You
should
know,
start
like I'm
responding
right here. This I literally
to
said to someone, I was
comment.
like, "You're not gonna read this, right?" Like,
This wasn't posted on some random account. Like,
yeah, I'm here.
I'm the guy.
Yeah, you're being mean to
Uh,
me, just so you
I'm.
know.
You have to put I'm right here, but WR. uh, um, that man, this was fun. We should do another podcast again.
Yeah, thanks
I
for
always
having me,
keep
man.
these tight on around an hour, so
Smart.
yeah, people's attention span, right? But I
Well,
encourage people go watch Live at the Majestic. It's on YouTube. Comments Johnny Rogers show. So hopefully you can see some people went over.
thanks a lot for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. All right, we'll talk soon, man.
All right, take care.
Peace.